Hey everybody, David R. Becker here with BeckerArt, and today we're at our paint along with a nice bridge in a snowy scene. And this actual picture I got off the internet again, and I think I did some changing to it, but I will talk about that in a little bit. And so let's just go right to my website to show you, anybody who's new here. Go to my website anytime you want to see or get the image. If you're not part of the newsletter that I send out every Tuesday, you can sign up for it here on my website, but also you don't have to get the newsletter to get this image. Just come over here to my website at BeckerArt.net or davidrbecker.com and just pick it up here. If you click on there, it'll get bigger, and then you can download it. And then if you want to get my newsletter every week, you come down here and you go right to this, and you just fill in right here your name and email, and you'll pick up a newsletter that I put out every Tuesday morning, and then you can just find everything there too. All right, so let's just go to our supplies, and my supplies, of course, are Holbein watercolors, and I also use Stonehenge aqua paper for most of my stuff. And so this is 300 pound that I use, so that I don't have to tape it down, and it's not on a panel, but that's what I would do. I would take it down to a panel afterwards. And then my brushes, which you can get on my website also. You can purchase them on my website. They are Holbein brushes. You can get Holbein brushes at some of the art stores. Also, they're called Holbein Golds. These are the 6 that I use, and the 6 that have my name on them, or BeckerArt, my BeckerArt brush. And so, so that's that about the supplies. And now let's go right to our value pattern, because what I want to talk a little bit about this painting is that, a lot of times we do the snow scenes, and a lot of them do with sun. The sunny snow scenes with the nice shadows and everything. Well, this one doesn't have shadows. It has shadows, but not direct shadows from sunlight. Like, there's no sun out. It's more of a misty day. It's the cloudy sky and stuff, and so it's also a limited palette in a way. But I want to show you how to do this kind of scene instead of always doing the one that we did. We did a sunset the other time we did a Thursday paint along. And so this one I wanted to do a snow scene again. It could be a great Christmas card also, and with the bridge and the water. And so I blurred the water too, because the water in this image was not that great, so I had Photoshop put a little bit better a look into that. And so that's what we're doing. We're going to do the bridge. And as you look, I made it black and white. And this is more of a, when it's overcast like this, it is a little bit more high key. What does that mean? It means that there's not many darks in it. And so you save your darks for basically your center of interest, or I like to call it area of interest. And so if you look at this area right here, this is my area of interest. My darkest dark and lightest light are going to be in the center of interest, the area of interest. And so there'll be kind of this area right here. Right. The bridge itself basically is the center of interest, but not always just a thing. It's the area, and even these trees are the only dark. Underneath is the only dark, and not the only dark, but I mean the darks are the trees underneath the bridge, and maybe this tree over here, which this the tree trunk is right on the edge, so you don't want that. So I'll probably bring that in a little bit, and yeah, so when it comes to doing this, it's gonna be done like one big wash. Remember when my BeckerArt 3-step, I do a lot of 1, 2, and 3 steps. And the first step is my lights and my color, what colors I'm going to use, and the color scheme. And so most of this painting will be done on the first wash because most of it is light and very high key. And so we'll spend our time doing the lights and getting them look really good. And again, I'll probably leave it limited palette because I'm going to keep it like in grays and blues, and I'll do some warmer colors, but there are a lot of grays I'll probably be using in this. And just something a little bit different from what we always do with the sunlight and direct sun shadows going on the snow. And so another thing I want to talk about is that when you look at snow, people think that they keep the paper white all the time. And for something like this, there is no sun. And so the sun would be the brightest usually when you're doing something like this. But when it comes to no sun in the picture, there is no really white in the picture. If you look at this image, and then look at this right here. This is white. That's white. But do you see this white is not quite as white as that? You know, right next to you, look right here and look right here. This is snow. And I know I made it blurred, but this is a white. This is a white and black image that I have. And so this snow is not really white. It's not pure white. And so I'm going to give it a nice wash. The whole thing I'm going to give it a wash so that it has more of a feel of an overcast day. Because you would not have something that's totally white in an overcast, because if the sun was in there, that would be the only thing that would be white. And so a lot of times watercolors like to keep the paper white, which is okay, because you know, if the paper is not totally white, sometimes they use the not bright white paper. So then it's kind of like more dulled down. And so I just want to let you understand that when you're doing snow, it doesn't always have to be white of the paper. It can be a white, the lightest thing on your paper, but it maybe has a little bit of a color to it. Like this could have a little bit of gray into it. It could have a little bit of, a warmth to it too. And so don't think it's just completely white. All right. So let me go over here and see if anybody's watching. And hey guys, let's see who's all here. Oh, let's see if any questions. Hey Holly, hey Sherry, hey Marsha, Pat, Sherry, and Happy. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to get to our tabletop here. And let me just show you. And even, I just seeing here now, my lights are pretty bright, but it's all about white, right? And so if you look at the photo, it's even brighter than my setup. My setup here is very warm. And I'm going to hopefully probably change that a little bit in the time, because I just noticed that because I was really studying about whites today. It's all about what I'm going to use for a white in this picture. And whites can be, like right now, my paper and on my screen, this is kind of warm white. And in the photo right here, it seems like it's more of a bluish tinge to it and stuff. And so I can change my color of my lights, and I probably should do that next time, and to see, that it's, white can be many different shades of white, is what I'm kind of talking about in this instant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet the whole surface, and I'm going to give the lights and these trees back here, do them all now when it's all wet, and I'm going to give this snow a color. This color of the sky too, because it is white when it falls, it's white, but because it's in atmosphere and you're looking through a camera now and looking at the image, or just if you're outside, everything is kind of the same white. And so the sky kind of reflects into the white of the snow. And so, and this is being really, it's really like, I know it doesn't really matter that much, but it kind of does, because if you want to make it look natural and real, then you have to look outside and really figure out the values of the snow that's white. And give it, because it's overcast, so it doesn't have a really bright look, right? It's not super bright with sunny shadows and shadows going across it, making it looking really bright. You can keep things a little bit less vibrant in something like this, because it's more of a mood. It's more of a, and you can still do like a warm background and a cool foreground, which is sometimes what you do. But since I wanted to kind of have that mood of just like grays and stuff, I'm going to keep it cool in the back and bring it warm in the foreground, even though the shadows could be in the cool side, but I want the bridge to be warm, and I'm going to do that. And when I say warm, it's not going to be really bright colors. It's just going to still be a gray, but a warmer gray. All right, and so again, let's go over everything. And so I'm just wetting the whole paper. And I don't like to ever, I tell my students never to spray the paper first, like spray it with a mister, because the mister puts a mist on it and doesn't soak into the paper. You really want to just take your brush and just brush it in there, and then just let it sit for a little bit so it soaks into the paper a little bit. It'll give you a little bit more time than with your water to let the pigment sink into the paper. And so that's what's happening to the paper right now. It's sinking in and giving it a nice, like a smooth surface. And now we're going to take, and this is one of my new palettes I built, but I didn't fill all the things in yet because I didn't have enough paint to fill it all up. But the colors I may be using are kind of warm and cool, and I got those, so that's good enough. So I'm going to take a little bit of gray on gray, a little bit of verditer blue. This is verditer blue right here. It's kind of a purpley blue. This is composed blue. I'm just going to go across everything here and dull down my white sky, because the sky is light, but it still should have a little bit of a color, I think, of blue. And as you're doing a painting, I want it to look like a painting, so it's nice to have a little bit of this paint, you know, some of the pigment kind of sitting in the sky, and a little tinge, a little hint of light blue. You know, not much, just it's not going to be really a lot, and it's going to be very limited, but I do want some of the pigment to sit on top. I'm going to go right over, and this will be the color of the snow. This is the sky that's white, but it's also going to be the color of the snow. And so I'm taking my grays, and if you don't have like a gray on gray, you can mix a gray with just a little bit of black and just white, black and white, to make a gray. Gray definitely has some white in it, or the paper can be white, and so you just use black with just a little with a little bit of pigment. See, if I use a little bit of pigment, a lot of water, and then I can also use this blue, it'll make it also the same thing. So just a little bit of color over all my over all the whole scene. See how it has a little bit of a look now of atmosphere. If I would just keep it all white, it wouldn't have that like atmosphere of being, you know, not really bright sunny. You know, when you want a really bright sunny, then you want a pure white, and that would be fine. But I don't need a pure white in this scene. I'm going to take a little bit of orange now in my bluish purple, a little orange blue. I'm going to put it into the area where the bridge is going to be, and put it into the shadow of the water a little bit. And again, this is just doing the very light lights. I'm just putting a little bit in there so that it just feels, you know, like it's a really light, but it has a little bit of a temperature to it. A little bit of a temperature here, and it's still very wet, so it's just going to bleed. It's going to get lighter than this, but it'll at least have a little bit of a tinge to it. And back in the day, I used to never, I was always just thinking white, you know, when something's white, snow's white, right? Snow's white. But it's not really white when you're putting it against something else. Like if I have my, you know, if I have a sheet of paper, let's see, I have a sheet of paper right here. And this is a sheet of paper that's white, and look at, you know, white against the background now. You know, it's not everything is totally white. Even though it looks very bright in the picture, but it's not always that way where you're using a lot of just everything white in a snow scene. Especially in a scene like this where you want some temperature changes and kind of a fogginess to it. Or a blurriness to it too, because it's no sun. There's no sun in this. It's very blurry. All right, so now I'll silhouette back here. I noticed there's little dots in here. That must have been my fingerprints when I was touching the paper. So to get these trees back here, they're all soft edged. And so I'm going to take my smaller brush now, and I have to wait a little bit because I want it to be soft edged, but I don't want to. I want to be able to show it looks like trees. And so I'm going to take pure pigment that's almost, my brush is slightly wet. I'm taking almost pure pigment of the gray, some of this lavender. This is verditer, actually. It's verditer blue. Or is that lavender? Oh no, that's lavender. This is verditer blue. And so I'm going to take a little bit of those colors. So that's horizon. I thought that was compose. No, that is lavender right there. So let's go across the top of the bridge where it's going to be light snow, and then I'm just going to kind of go here. This is all wet, and I have enough pigment in my brush that it's just nothing but pigment. And then I'm just going to do like these little swipes of trees back here. Just little, like it's just blurry. I'm not putting any branches in or anything like that. I'm just putting an overall feel of stuff back there. Like branches, not branches, but a lot of, you know, thousands of branches in one part of the tree. And then just making my line across the top of the snow that is white, lighter. And it gets over here, I'm getting a little bit darker in the background. And I'm putting pure pigment with hardly any water in my brush because there's water on the paper, and I just want it to be blurry, and I want it to be soft edged, and I want it to look like, you know, it's wet, so it's going to keep a soft edge, but I also want it to look like a bunch of little branches in the very distance. And here I can put a few little trunks in, very little bit, and then there's a little bush right back here. I wanted harder edge along the top of the bridge, right? Because that is the little bit of snow embankment on top of the bridge. I'll wet my brush a little bit because it started getting too dry, and so I'm just going to go in here and get some more of this gray, and then just put it in here, kind of scumbly into the water on my paper. Hey Jerry, hey Holly. Ask questions if you need questions answered, guys. I'll look once in a while. So see how the background looks like it's way back there? And it's just grays, and there is some blue, there's some violet, lavender, and blue, but it's very low key. And I also use some broad black, very light bit of black to make it gray. And that's, you know, you look in the photo, and if you're out there in real life, it is not as vibrant as we make it out to be. Though you could change your value, your color scheme, and if you wanted to make it really bright, then yeah, that's fine, you know. But know that you're going to do that in the beginning, that you want to make it really colorful grays instead of maybe these muted grays. And so you're the artist. You make it whatever you want. It doesn't have to be exactly like the photograph sometimes, or when you're outside, even when you're playing or painting, it doesn't have to look exactly like what you see. You can, you know, use your artistic license and make it anything you want. I want to make this look moody. I want this to have some mood to it. And so by doing this, by making everything so soft-edged and blurry, I find that to be what I want. And so I'm going to make these little tree branches back here. I'm getting a little bit harder edge because this is starting to dry a little bit, so I'm kind of rubbing it a little bit. This is kind of like blending on a little bit drier paper now. And so I'll put little branches in there, little trunks of the trees. And this is the background. It's still my lights. This whole painting is more of a light. It's like I said before in the beginning, it is a high-key painting, so everything is a little bit lighter overall, and then you just have the darks that I showed you in the beginning. Underneath here, the trees, and that'll be the last thing I do, and it'll be in the foreground. But this background here I can get now and just get it nice and moody. We can do this trees. We can get some of this branches in there. When your brush gets too dry, you can't pick up paint, and so you definitely have to have your brush wet at some time. But what I do is I kind of plop it onto my paper towel, and then I can just use the other side and just put pure paint into my wet wash. I may have, oh, I just went over the snow. Just went over the snow. Because on top of the bridge, there's snow sitting there, and so I'm going to leave that. And now underneath this tree, there's some shadowing. And now the bridge itself has snow in those little crevices where the where the bricks are not, the grout lines or the cement lines that are inside there. Those are I want those to be also snow looking like, and so I am going to put a little bit of a wash over that white so that it becomes the lightest color of that bridge. And I don't have to make this warm because I can, well, maybe let's make it a little warm. Let's put a little bit of orange into my purple here. And again, really light. And this is not the bricks. These are the grout lines. This is the color of the grout lines. I know it looks like the bridge, but no, they'd be a lot darker. This is still my light. This is just the grout lines. And so this is what's in between the bricks and the rocks, the stone. This is like a stone bridge, so it'll be what's between the stones. This here's all being really dark. You can just go in there, you get that right away. Now, I'm not going to do the darks in the water right yet because I don't know what they're going to be here yet, but I can do some of the background into the water. And now this all has dried, and so I'm going to take my big brush again and get that wet. Could you use Payne's Gray with a lot of water? Yes, Payne's Gray would be great. I like Payne's Gray is kind of bluish, but you can also add warmth to it too. So yes, Payne's Gray is a great color. It's just another kind of gray. It's a gray. It's more of a darker gray, but if you water it down a little bit, it'll just be perfect. So again, this is the color of the snow. This is not the darks yet. This is the snow color. I'm giving the snow. I am leaving some because at first, remember I put that little bit of violet on there. I'm going to keep that violet on there, but now I'll re-wet everything again and get a little bit more of the softness and the roundness of the actual banks of snow. So it's okay. This is drier now. It's dry again. So I'm going to take clean water and go over all this again. The bottom, not the top. That's done. You know, the top is pretty much close to done. And I'll go back with the trees later on, with the darker trees. Now let's get the bottom. And by re-wetting, which is already dry, nothing happens to that. You're just wetting it. And now I could also use the mister. I can use it after I dry. I can just put a mist on it, make it nice and dry. But one thing about these misters, they're continuous, and so when you pump it, it keeps on spraying. And sometimes all you have to do is do one swipe across it. And don't shoot it like straight on like this. Always come it across and just very quickly. Now mine is too wet because I just sprayed it after I wet it. So it's a little bit too wet now. So I'm going to take a little bit of it out of there, take my brush, and just, now it's going to probably affect the color that I put down first because I put so much water, it's going to pick up that paint. And so I got to go back in. But this time what I do, there's still some of the pigment in there, right? So now I'll just make it a little bit darker. I'll make it a little bit darker pigment. I used compost blue, that's lavender. I haven't used any warm, what do you call it, horizon blue because it's a little bit too warm. I want this to be more of a cool painting, and the bridge can be the warmth part of it. And so the cool part, I still want to keep cool. And so I don't use a blue that has a lot of warmth to it, which may sound weird, but there are blues that are warmer. You know, that it's more, they're warmer blues. They have a little bit of red in them. Or purple, which is, you know, red and blue make purple. And so here underneath this, underneath the banks of the snow, I'm getting there a little bit darker now, a little bit of black to gray it up a little bit. And I got to remember, I got to go 20% darker than I really want it to be. And so that once it dries, it'll be the perfect value. Because if it looks perfect while it's wet, it's wrong. Because it's going to dry 20% lighter. So if it looks too dark, that's perfect. You know, if it looks too dark right then, make it 20% too dark than you want it. And then it'll be perfect once it dries because it'll dry 20% lighter. Now I'll put this little part of the bridge in here. And the water is all wet, so I'm going to get all soft edging. So that's what I want. And then I'm going to put a little bit, this area is going to be dark down here, so I'll put a little bit of that in there. This is going to reflect the light in there, so I'm going to leave that alone. Leave that being light. I can always put hard edges in there later also and make it a little bit grayer, or put a little warmth in there, a little bit of violety red. And the way this is looking pastel-like, it's just because I'm using white. I'm using a titanium white, or there's white in the pigment that I'm using so that it makes it more pastel. And that doesn't make it gouache per se, because I'm using it like a watercolor technique where I'm doing wet into wet. And so it's not gouache, but if I make it really thick, then it becomes gouache. Well, it is opaque in the fact that if I put it on thick, it's not put on thick, so I can use gouache like watercolor. It's become a really interesting topic for me because I do a lot of gouache, but I don't actually buy gouache. I just use white paint. And so it's kind of interesting that we call it gouache because basically what gouache is opaque watercolor. So anytime you put something down and you can't see the white of the paper, then you're using gouache. So it's just opaque. It's opaque watercolor. And here I'm putting a little bit of dark in here. But that's going to be darker yet because when I get in there with my darks, you're going to see how different the darks are going to be. This is still my light areas. These are still lights. I'm not doing my darks yet. And I'm even going to put some of these tree branches in there. Just because I want them soft edged and I want them to be blended, you know, perfectly. You know, here there's a little mess. I'm going to mess it up a little bit because these will be branches that are going to be dark. But when they hit the water, I can do it again later. But these will be the ones behind. Either the ones behind or the ones that are not quite as dark. And this should be a little bit lighter right there because it's got to fit that part. I'm going to make it a little bit warmer again by putting a little bit of warmth in this snow. And I know it looks weird that it's so light. Everything is so light, and that it doesn't really look like snow yet because it looks like kind of dark snow because there's the thing. But once I put the darks in there, suddenly it'll become all clear to you why I'm using and putting a color on the snow to make it a certain value, a certain color. All right, so there's my lights, basically. I think that's about it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this tree in the background here. And I'm going to do that. It's dry, but what I'm going to do is keep it low key. And high key, I should say. Let's see, compose blue looks lavender. I used it today. Yeah, compose blue is a great bluish violet color, and so I use that a lot for snow. If you want to use snow, use compose or verditer. I should say that's verditer. I think compose blue is this one. Yeah, this is compose blue right here. This is verditer. Verditer blue is the purple. Sorry. Verditer blue is the blue with purple in it, and this is lavender, which is lavender, and this is composed blue, which is more of a turquoise kind of blue. And then this is turquoise. That's turquoise right there. And you notice I'm not using any turquoise colors. I'm using all more towards the gray side, the cooler side blues, and the violety blues. All right, so let's do this tree back here really quickly. Let's get that done. And that's in the background, so I want to keep it down there and use verditer blue. Sorry about that. It's verditer blue I was talking about. Don't pretend like I never said compose blue. Sorry about that. Hey, from New Jersey. Hey, Jerry. Compose blue, lavender. Could you use green? Yep, I answered all that. So let's go and do that tree. So I'm going to use a little bit of verditer blue. And now this tree back here is a little bit more, I'm going to see it a little bit more, maybe a little bit darker. I'm just going to take my brush, and I like to do the trunk of the tree first. I like to just put it in there real quickly. And then I'll do the branches of this one, and I'll just take and swipe it, my brush, back and forth. And how detailed you want it is up to you. I'm going to keep it low key, or lighter than, so that the hard edges won't look really hard because it's not contrasty. If I leave it less contrasty, it'll look like it'll be a hard edge, but it'll look like a soft edge because it's not so much contrast. So you won't see the hard edge because it's not that contrasty. And that's the way you make a soft edge. If you ever want to do a soft edge and you don't want to make a soft edge, then just do not much contrast on your changes of value. Keep them very light. Now here I'm going to do another little tree in here with a little trunk in there. This could be like a golf course, you know, with the big areas of just trees and stuff, and so very cool. All right, so there's that tree, and there's the trees underneath it here a little bit. Now some of these trees on the side here, I'm going to use my ugly brush. This is my ugly brush. This is the brush that you can get at Walmart, not Walmart, Menards, and it's like 99 cents. And the worse they are, and you cut into them. I know a couple artists cut into them, and just make it look terrible. And then just the bristles are great because for like grasses, tree branches. So what I'll do is I'll just back here, I'll wet it a little bit, go in there with these colors, and really get the water out of there. And then just go over here and get those really far. Ooh, too wet. Get those distant branches way back there. And clean it out first too, because I just noticed I have some warm color in there, but that's okay too. You know, if there's a few little warm colors, that's fine. So I gotta put it on my towel here. I'm just rubbing it down, and then I'm just gonna get some of these branches that are in the distance. And so you just like make them little grasses and swipe them a little bit here and there. And these are gonna be the ones behind these trees that look really. There's a lot of branches out there, and we normally we don't make them look like there's enough of them. So I'm just making it very easy to do the background ones and just getting them in there. It's like you're faking them in there, and this tree is going to have a lot of little branches back here. I just tap down with a not very wet brush. It's just almost like I'm dry brushing it even. And these are the very fine branches you barely can see. You know, the thousands of branches that you barely see. They're not the dark ones. They're the light ones that are behind. Verditer blue. I'll keep on saying that now so you don't confuse compose blue. Verditer blue is absolutely great for snow scenes. It's a purple blue. And I'm not going to do that down here because I want that to be blurry, and I'll do that later if I re-wet it again. All right, so now let's go up here and do our dark branches. And though I should have done that well, this one's dry still. So let's go in here and just start getting our dark branches. Predator blue, and these are kind of greenish dark blues. So I'm going to go into a Prussian blue here first. I'm going to pick up a Prussian. Oh, that's purple. Still learning my palette. Here's Prussian blue. Prussian blue and Quinacridone gold will make a green. And then I'll add a little bit darker blue to that. And to dull that down, if I want to make it dull, I can add a little black or orange, red or orange. This is a brand new palette. I didn't even touch the things yet. Look at that. So that's pretty dark, right? And my brush is way too wet because now I want to make these branches. And so I'm just going to go in here, and this is going to be a little bit harder edged. And I use my brush to get the look of these pine needles, pine branches. And like I said, I usually like to get the trunk in first. I like to put the trunk in real first, and that way I can add the branches to that. And actually, I like using the bigger brush for this. The big round brushes work great if you put the point down. Wish I can get this a little bit thicker. And so what I do is I use the point, and then I press down and I push my brush sideways, and what it does is the back bristles make it look like you're using like you're making the pine needles. If you look at this sheet of paper, out there, this sheet of paper, and let me show you. So you push down, and you use the back bristles to make the pine needles. It's like you're not using the point, you're bending over the point and then getting the back bristles. Will this be in focus? No, probably not. I can't focus on it, can it? So you kind of just use the back bristles. See, I'm using the back bristles. Come on, focus in. It's not going to do it. Come on, focus. It's supposed to be on automatic focus. Oh well. So you're going to go back here, and you're going to use the back bristles basically. You see from the side. I point down the brush, and I use the back bristles back here to make the look of the pine needles. I think I showed that before, but I should do that. I should do that really where you can see it close up. Or you can just draw every one of these little branches in with a rigger brush, and then just take. There's so many different kinds of pine trees. It's so amazing. So here's if I use a rigger brush. A lot of those are really small branches, so I can just go in here with the rigger brush and get a lot of these branches in here. And the same thing, I bend the brush and use the back of the brush to get the back bristles to make it really thin. I'm usually not this detailed about it, but I'm going to give you an idea of how to make it really detailed. And why not? You know, sometimes you make things a little bit more detailed. And this area right here is center of interest, so go ahead and make it nice and interesting. And make it a little bit darker. Darker and lighter branches, not all the same color, because there's some that are in front, some are behind, some are overlapping the front. And don't make it like a Christmas tree where it's so perfect, because this is out in nature, and they're not perfect in nature. They're some branches get snapped off, and you never know in nature what happened to that particular tree, or that branch, or that trunk. It could have broken. Lightning could have hit it. And as I come forward, I get darker, and I break it up a little bit here. This goes right down to the ground. Breaks up a little bit. And I always put the trunk in first, and then I go with the big branches. And so I like to put some branches in there too. And so I'll do a lighter trunk, verdant or blue, graze it out, because I'm using the same blues throughout everything. So that don't change it. You don't have to change it and make everything so different. You know, use one color scheme, and then stick with it. All right, so let's take this. I also have a 1/4 inch ugly brush. That's a 1/2 inch. This is 1 inch. Then there's a 1/2 inch. And there's even a 1/4 inch one of these brushes that I had to get on. I think online on Amazon or something, because they didn't have them they didn't have such small brushes at the hardware store. But what you can do too is just do these bigger branches. Just plop it down basically with my ugly brush. And so let's see, these branches are pretty dark over here. All right, now I'll go with my big brush, my big round brush. And then I'll get the look of the trees, the tree branches. How detailed you get is up to you and your style. Some people are really loose. Some people are a little bit tighter. Some people are super tight. Some people are super realistic. So you decide on what your style is or how much you like it, what you like best, and go for that. I like to be a little bit loose, and then some parts can be tighter, like in the center of interest. Sorry, what color did you mix with quinacridone gold for the green? I mixed the dark blue, Prussian blue, to make it really dark green, and so that's I used mixed with quinacridone gold. Loving the moody look. Thanks. Sorry, what color did you mix with the? Okay, I used. Hey Tina. Better late than never. It's always. It's fine. Absolutely fine. Here now I'm doing the BeckerArt twitch. Like if you just wanted to have a loose brush strokes, I do this twitch thing with my hand where I kind of like pretend like I'm really nervous, and then just go over it really, with no intention of actually drawing something exact, just a little bit of lines and a little bit of nervousness to get the branch to look very. Because I mean, there's so many branches in there. It can look like anything really. As long as you get some branches and some trunks in here. All right, so that's the left side for now. And we can go back in and get more and more detail yet, and just maybe even a little bit darker. Let's go to this side real quick. And so what we'll do is we'll do the same thing with these branches. Now again, I used Prussian blue with quinacridone gold. Oh, that was a purple again. There's Prussian blue, and then I take quinacridone gold with Prussian blue. That makes a really dark green, and then I'll use a little bit of like a burnt sienna type to make that in there, make it a little bit browner. And see how dark that is, that green. And so on this tree over here, I'm just going to go in there and just do more branches. And if I want to negative paint around snow on it, but these branches don't have much snow on them. And like when I did the snow scene the last time, I did a little bit more snow packed on top of the branches, but this doesn't have snow on it as much. And I could negative paint around some of this blue to make it look like there's a little bit of snow on there, and then do under part of it. And I'm not going to put the trunk in this one at all. I don't want to sit right on the edge, so I'm just going in and putting all branches. Basically, there you go. And then you can also take that blue and do the same thing like it was behind it, like something behind it. Because the blue looks like it's farther back, right? And so you just use that. Use the same blue, and watch this. I can make a tree look like it's in the distance by just putting a lighter color of the same kind of swatches that I'm doing, but with a lighter color. That bluish gray, and I can make that look like it's a tree behind there. And then there's these two trees right here. And this brush gets really fine. It's got a fine tip, so I'm just get the tip, make it really fine. Then I'll use my rigger brush to get the branches, because there's a lot of branches on that tree. So we'll just go in there and use a little bit more burnt sienna color to get the branches. So you go in there, and a rigger brush is a very thin blade brush. So what I do is I just go in to barely touch the paper, and then just go and run it thick to thin, or thin to thick, either way. And make sure your branches have an anatomy to them. They don't go from thick down to the branch. They go thick from the branch, from the trunk, and they go thinner as they get out. And so you can do the main ones, and then what you can do is use the ugly brush to kind of do the tips of them. So right, I'm just doing the thinner branches, and you can do a lot of these. You can do a lot of branches. Overlap some, make some blue, because they're not all the same value either, not the same color or value. So a little bit of blue, very light blue. Again, the less the value, the hard edge will look soft because there's not much value in that. Lots of branches. Practice this on the side. Don't even do it in your painting. Just do trees sometimes. Just take a brush and see if you can make a tree, and see how the branches go. I know they go from thick to thin, and they get thinner and thinner, but you have to overlap sometimes. You got to bring it forward, downwards, the branches, because they're coming at you. And then I'll do a bunch of little trees back here. All right, really quickly. I gotta hurry up here. Now we're going to do these little wisps for the branches on the end. Like so, they're just wisped. Because those are ones that are, I know they're a little green, but I wanted them to be green because they are actually green. And so they're a little bit greener than the photo, because the photo makes everything the same as what is in the overall part. And so, but as an artist, I can make this a little bit bluer or greener because there could maybe branches are a little bit more brownish green. Okay, so now let's get these bricks done here really quickly. I'm going to do the bigger parts of the dark first, and so let me use where's my flat brush? Here it is, 1/2-inch flat. So now we're going to do the underside of the bridge. Let's get that in there. I'm going to use purple, a little bit of warm blue, a little bit of blue in there, and so I'm going to go right in here now and pick up my darkest dark right in here. The train's there. A little bit of warmth underneath here too, because I want a little bit warmer underneath here. And then it looks like we got these stones. It's not a straight line coming down. It's a little bit like that. And then we go to the top of the water, which is light, and so that's the hard edge. And I can make this look textury by putting then in a little bit darker colors right in there, just dropping a little bit darker and thicker too. Go a little bit thicker so that it'll stay. Kind of a brownish color. I'm just going to put in there, make it look like there's some bricks underneath. I'm not going to go and do the reflection yet because I'll stick with that in a second. But now I want to put a little bit more warmth up underneath here. Just a little bit more warmth. There's always underneath things get a little bit warmer, like it's projecting warmth up into that area. Now the bricks themselves are going to be warm and kind of gray, so let's make some gray, kind of blue gray. And then I'm just going to go in there and actually draw each brick, because I can do that quickly by just using a flat rectangular brush. A flat brush makes rectangular shapes really easy. And then maybe a little bit of warmth in that gray. Don't change your gray up a little bit here and there, because not every brick is the same. There's a little bit different brick here and there, and so. And it's really easy doing this because it's rectangular shape, and a brush that's flat gives you an easy rectangular shape. It's so easy to do a rectangular shape. And look at it, I'm leaving, remember that color we put light, that's the grout lines? Look at how now you can see that's the color of the grout. And so I put that in before. I wouldn't put it in afterwards because that would be too hard. I could, if I was an acrylic artist or an oil painter, I could put that on top of it, but I'm using it opposite. I'm doing it where I put it in afterwards. Now I didn't sketch anything up here, so I'm just going to put in random bricks everywhere and leaving little lines around them. I could have drawn it in too and get them exact, but it's up to you. If you want to make it exact, then or if you're tracing it up thing, you can put every brick exactly the way it is. Over here, I'm going to get a little bit warmer in the front, because I like things that get warmer when they come forward. So let's make these bricks a little bit warmer gray. I can use a little lavender in there too. A little bit of orange on top of that. I'm also making them a little bit darker as they come forward here. And it looks like they go sideways when they get up here. They kind of go, it's like the brick gets elongated. And I know in the picture that they're all cool, everything is cool, but that's okay. You can change it and so that it makes it look like it comes forward a little bit better than the picture itself. I'm always trying to think what is in the picture that I don't think is going to work as well as if I do it on my own. Like in changing the image and changing the values and colors to please myself as an artist to make it look better as a painting than as a photograph. And that's the back wall. Now I almost got this part. 15 minutes left. I think we'll get it. A little bit more gray. And yes, this is detail, but it's a big detail that is the center of interest. So, you know, I'm going pretty fast. I could slow down and make like I said, each individual brick exact. But I think that's good enough. And look at how some of the bricks change colors a little bit. Let's put some that are a little bit warmer. Underneath here now, I'm going to get a little bit darker. So I'm putting a little bit darker color way inside there. So I'm using purple, Prussian blue, something really, really dark. I'm going to put right here, right there, and make a really dark. I'm just going to project a really dark area, like it's way in the tip right there. And then I'll just get a little bit of these bricks going sideways. They're not bricks, they're like stones, the stone bridge. Alright, so there we have the bridge, and later on I can even go under each individual thing there and get each tree and each brick with shape underneath. And alright, so now let's do the water dark, but for that what I want to do is first I'm going to do the outer line of the snow. So usually this will be the edge of the snow. I want to get right where the water hits the snow area. It's usually nice, a really dark. I'm gonna make it warm, like it's earth tone, almost brown, and where the water hits the dirt, and underneath the snow, that's where it to be really dark. I'll make it hard edged, and this is a little bit of dark here. This is dark, and that's a reflection. Some really dark purple, some really dark blue. So that separates my snow bank from the water, and this is all going to be reflection then after that. And so this part I can wet now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet it, and I'm going to work it all wet in the wet. Why am I doing that? It's because I want soft edges. I want them to be blurry and soft. If I wanted hard edges to make it look like it's a really still, then it looks too still, the water. My teacher always told me that you just make water look like it's flowing and not like a camera takes a shot and it stops it, right? No, you want to make it look like the water's still flowing through there. And the best way to do that is make it blurry. Make it blurry. Don't make it so that it is, make it so it doesn't look like it's standing still, like a mirror. So I'm taking a dirty brush of water. You may want to change your water for this. I'm going back over it again, right? I'm going back over everything because I want it to be soft edged. So I'm just doing the area I want to be soft edged, and that's underneath. Simple, and nothing really happens, right? It's just you're just wetting it. And so I'll take my smaller brush and take those colors I used before on the top part, and bring them right down into the. Remember that was a brown, right? And I used that little bit of sepia color, like a burnt sienna color. It's actually called light red for Holbein, but it's kind of like a sepia color. What I'm going to do is just kind of go in here now. A little bit of purple, but that's really brownish red, isn't it? I'm going to get a little bit more purple. More purple red. And see how it's out of focus? Because remember, it's wet. And so I need enough painting to get the look of the edge. And then I need to just blur things around. Oh, that's supposed to be the snow. See, that's going around the snow. I can make it some blue too. I can make it some bluish purple. Where's my purple? That's black. This is purple. This is the bridge part, and so that goes up like this. And so it's just basically just opposite what I just did. So that comes up here. I can even put waves in there a little bit. So this tree right there is starts right here, right? And then there's a lot of things going down here. And I don't have to make this perfect. This is the top of the wall, that's the top of the wall, then it starts right here. And then there's a bunch of stuff happening there. Hey Maura, that's all right. You and Tina both are late. That's okay. You'll watch it again. You can come back later on. It's all about a lot of lights on this one. There's a lot of lights, and the darks are now coming into play a little bit. Let's make that a little bit grayer. Let's give it that blue look again. Let's give it that more gray look. Mess this up a little bit and get it out of focus. I don't need to be in focus there. I'm doing opposite this, and I don't want it to look like it's a mirror. Some people like that look where it looks like it's upside down. You can't tell if it's upside down or not because it's identical to what's in there, like a mirror. But then it looks too like the water's not moving. I want the water to look like it's moving. Just one of those things I learned from my teacher, Irving Shapiro, who told us to do that. And so you kind of stick with what your teacher tells you. A little bit of blue here, and I'm going to do the shoreline over here, which it doesn't have a shoreline in the picture. I'm going to kind of do what it did on this side. Now over here, I got to get around this and make it look like it's reflecting in there. And it comes up this way, and this tree is right there, right? Get that in there. This tree is right here. And then it kind of goes up in here and gets the look of this bank right in there. Now we're going to get the shape of all these trees over here, or the snow over here, by just doing a light. First, there's a shadow underneath here. There's a little bit of shadow there, right? Because there's a shadow on top part here, and then it'll go up a little bit. And I'm making this really light, so it could be a hard edge, but it'll still look soft. I'll just make it very light color. That way, it'll still look very soft and not hard edged. When it's contrasted, then you'll see it as a really, really hard edge. But if you leave it just nice and light, the shadow, it'll be fine. And remember, this now look how white that looks, right? It looks very white. And remember, I put a wash over that. And so it looks better now because it looks white because of all the darks I put around it. It's a very light area, and you don't need much to make it look like snow, but there's the color there. There's color there, and that's where you want to keep everything really nice and not so dark. You can keep things really nice and light, and it looks more fluffy too if you keep it not so contrasty. Now, if the sun was out and there was a really bright shadows and stuff, then yeah, that's a whole different story. But right now, this is overcast, and I just need a little bit of dark. Put a little dark underneath the snow rim underneath here. Maybe there's a little shadow here. Any questions? Uh-oh, it went up. Let's see here. Hold on 1 second. Let's see what you guys' questions are. Okay, why is it not going down? Oh, here we go. Thanks, Marsha, for telling everybody to click. Hello, Wildflower. Hello, everyone. All right, let's go back to the painting. And how much time do we have? Oh, we got like 6 minutes. What else should I do? I don't see much more. And I didn't use any white paint on this one, if you think about it, because I have not used any white paint, but I've got my lights working pretty well. I think the lights came out pretty well. Back here, I'll put a little bit of a shoreline. I don't want this to be too bright in here, because I want it to really stick out and I could put a person on the bridge too and stuff and make it, but this time I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep it where it is. And I noticed there's a little bit of these little weeds or little branches coming out of the snow, and I really don't like putting those in because I think it messes up the beauty. But Shapiro always used to do that and put a little red leaf on it, and so let's maybe do that. Okay, we'll just put in a nice dark couple little branches in here, and they have to be really, really thin. You know, make them really thin. I guess it doesn't look too bad, but I tend to not like those little things. I think it takes away sometimes if you put them in wrong, if you just put in way too many of them. And here what I'm doing in the back now. And then I'll take a little bit of a warmth, like a little bit of red, and then just put a couple of leaves sitting there. Like they're hanging on for dear life at the very end of their branch life. And then if there was like a sun out and you get a shadow from them, then you put the shadow across the image too. And I do need a shadow from this tree into the land, so I'm going to take some lavender or some verdure blue and again gray it up a little bit. And again, how do you gray blue or violet, yellow, and orange, and then or black? You know, one of those three colors can make it. Black will make it kind of very gray. If you use a composition, it'll make it a little bit browner or a little bit more earth tone like the shadow. But on basically when you're doing snow, you want it not to be dirty snow, so you don't make it too yellow. Matter of fact, you don't want it yellow at all. Let's do back here. Don't be afraid of using grays. It's just, it'll make your other grays and your blues look even brighter if you let them be in there and don't worry about them taking over. You're thinking that it's going to be muddy. No, it's not going to be muddy. It's just going to be gray. Final thing I'm going to do is make my tree trunks and stuff in there with just my thin brush here. I'm just going to take it and just kind of make it more movement in the. So let's get a nice gray here. Let's make it black, blue. I said orange, right? Orange. Look at the gray. Nice grays, and I'm just going to go in here and just start getting. Maybe this is the. I want to get some little reflections in here of the water. Maybe there's a little chunk in here. This especially, I want to get some of these in here where they're a little bit more defined. Only got 5 minutes, so that'll be perfect timing. Little branches, and you don't see the branches. You just see a bunch of little squiggly lines in the water. You don't exactly see exactly what's there. That's the nervous twitch again. BeckerArt nervous twitch. Just do a twitch. You know, you're just, there's the tree. It comes here. Maybe a little bit darker. See, it's nothing really hard. You just, go back in here and just kind of do a bunch of little lines. Little squiggly lines all over the place. That tree over there, remember that tree there? We're going to put that in, the squiggly lines. Squiggly lines. These tree trunks could be a little bit darker. Oops, not over the bridge. This one brick bugs me right here, so it's a little bit too brown. Any last questions? Yes, Shapiro talked me into it. Thanks, Darcy. Thanks for calling it beautiful. I think we're done, guys. A couple of these bricks coming down across. And I don't even need white paint. You could make it snow with white paint. You can go and tap over it and do a bunch of snow coming down. Or you could, if you want some paints to be a little bit brighter. But see, I want it to be moody. I didn't want this one to be shiny with a bunch of shininess into it. I could use my Pro White or the Dr. Martin Bleed Proof White. I could put in a little bit of reflection into the water. But then again, that's cheating when it comes to, like, I could put the lines in. I could make this all dark and put the lines in with white too. But this is more of a watercolor technique I'm doing now. Not as much of a gouache technique today. But either way is fine. I like both effects. So there you have it, guys. Thanks again for watching, guys, and thanks for coming back all the time. And please tell your friends and have them subscribe. Next year, I was telling everybody in my newsletter that next year I'm gonna be doing from the beginning. So if you have friends that are just starting out with watercolor, it'd be a good time to start and watch me next year, because I'm gonna it's gonna be video number 1, and it's going to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. And what it's going to be is going to be like we're starting from scratch again. We're going to do one color. I'm going to tell you about paper. I'm going to tell you everything about watercolor, how to begin it. And as we go along through the year, it's all going to be from one video to the next video to just make it better and better and better as we go along. So it'll be a good time to start next year and just really watch it. And then they'll be numbered, and they'll be in a folder, I think, or like they'll be part of a watch list. No, a list. It'll be a list, and it'll be basically, this is video number 1, video number 2 for 26, and so we're going to start from the beginning. And so if you ever want to tell a friend about it, it's all free. You can just tell them to watch me, start watching, and you can even watch them in order. You have to watch them live either, because there'll be some of them in there. Even the ones I do for my newsletter, they will be all integrated in from number 1 to whatever, how many I do that year, next year. So that'll be a good, and I'm finally going to be able to, tell you to go to video number so-and-so and look at that because of certain things that you want to learn how to do. All right? So tell your friends and subscribe, and we'll see you on Sunday. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.